One thing that we see over and over and over in bereavement counseling and grief work is that grief opens a rift in the story of who we are. Grief makes us ask a really difficult question, which is, who am I now that my entire world has changed? And that is a creative process. And part of the creative process of healing through grief is reconciling things that can't seem to be true, right? Our brains are pattern-seeking organisms. They keep us safe by looking at patterns. So two things that can't be true are, my friend is dead and I'm still here. How are those two things true? Another pair of opposites could be, I wish I had done more and I know that I did everything that I could. So just in the same way that healing through grief is a process of reconciling two things that can't seem to go together, our program helps to connect who we are now with the person on the other side, right? We're building connection so that people can heal.
Welcome to Signs from the Other Side with Fern. I'm your host, Fern, and this is the place to share stories of signs and messages received from the other side. Real quick before we get started, if you enjoy reading about signs and if you enjoy fiction like Bridget Jones and Sex and the City, you might enjoy my books, Better in the Morning and Better Believe It. And if you like this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe in Apple Podcasts and tell a friend too. Thank you so much for listening, and on to the show. Elizabeth Bryan-Jacobs, as you know if you listened or watched last week's episode, is an amazing artist, author, and dream catcher if there ever was one. Through her program called Awakenings Dreamwork, she helps participants connect with their loved ones on the other side through dreams, dream visits, and nurturing a spiritual relationship with them. With the help of Daryl Kovalich, a death doula social worker and bereavement counselor, it is a guided step-by-step program that tunes participants in and primes them for an unforgettable experience. I am so grateful to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fern. We're so grateful to be here with you. And, you know, as I said last time we were together, kudos for all the incredible work you're doing in this.
Thank you.
Because not just because you're so wonderful at it, because it also normalizes it for everyone else.
Right. Thank you. I feel like we're all a team. Everyone I'm connecting with, a friend who has a similar podcast, and all of you and all of these wonderful people I'm connecting with. Daryl, I'm so happy to meet you.
Thank you so much for welcoming me here.
We're making it normal, I think. And not to get weird, but should you do your chime us in?
Yes, we are all prepared to chime. Daryl and I came up with our intention together today. So yes, I will chime us in. So welcome, Fern. Welcome everyone out there in podcast world. Daryl and I are setting an intention today to support all of you out there in knowing that we are all born with the capacity to connect with our loved ones in spirit, and that what we share in this program, even today, can and will help you deepen your ongoing spiritual connection with everyone on the other side. And the second part of our intention is to invite folks out there to reflect on or invite in anyone that they'd like to connect with on the other side, and especially for you, Fern, specifically for your grandparents. So a big welcome and namaste.
So speaking of connecting, how did you two meet?
We met a couple of years ago. We were, unbeknownst to us, asked to collaborate as part of a Heroes of Grief retreat that is run every fall by Helios Care, which is a small nonprofit hospice provider in central New York where I work. And what we didn't know was that it was no accident that we met, but we immediately formed a bond and knew that we had to work together in some way.
Nice. It was meant to be. It was arranged.
So it was yes. Complete synchronicity.
Yes.
For sure.
What is, so Helios is a hospice. So do you work for hospice? Because I know you're a social worker and a death doula and a bereavement counselor.
Yeah, I'm a certified death doula, but my day job is that I work as a bereavement counselor for a nonprofit hospice in central New York State called Helios Care.
You know what's so consistent. Everyone always says the same thing about hospice. If someone has experienced a loved one passing and then hospice comes in, everyone says the same thing. Those people are angels. They are amazing. What they do. Why? I've been fortunate enough to not experience it at this point yet. But why is that? Is it the training? Is it?
Well, I think, most of us who work in hospice don't see ourselves as angels, but just as people who are capable of holding space for death and dying. And like you said, for normalizing conversations about things that our culture tells us should be kept under wraps. Right. And so I think that when hospice workers come and meet a family and caregivers and whoever else is in the picture, we allow people to talk about things that are essential to who we are as human beings. And that I think people find really refreshing.
Yes.
And liberating.
Yes.
And providing art therapy in hospice is really one of the greatest gifts I've ever shared, because it helps people make meaning out of their journey, make meaning out of their life, and create things that can be then shared with their loved ones after they're gone. It's just an unbelievably profound experience.
How did you come up with this program, Awakenings Dreamwork?
It was my own journey. I think I shared with you in 2016, I had a dream that told me to pay attention to my dreams. It was a true calling. Threw myself into Jungian analysis with an amazing Jungian analyst who's also an art therapist and wrote several of my textbooks. And I was just immediately flooded with dreams and visitation dreams. And fortunately, I had her to help me, help normalize me and help me make sense of them. Then my father, who was elderly but not sick at all, started sharing his dreams with me, and it became very clear that he was going to become sick, even what was going to go wrong, and even when he was going to die, and most importantly, what he needed at the end of life. His dreams told me. And so I dove really deeply into research on end-of-life dreams and visions in hospice. And there's a Dr. Christopher Kerr at Hospice Buffalo, who's like the foremost researcher on this topic. And end-of-life dreams and visions are usually when a loved one comes to support the dying person to cross over. And I had this aha moment. It gives me a chill right now. I thought, well, they come at the end of life. They come unbidden during life. Why can't we practice dream incubation and bring them forward when we want them to come? And Daryl, you can speak a lot to that.
Oh, in addition to what Elizabeth just shared, through my experience both as a death doula and more specifically as a bereavement counselor, I would say that at least 9 out of 10 of my clients at some point during our time working together mention, without me asking them, that they've had a dream or a visitation from a loved one, or they have times when they feel them close, or there are things that they can do during the day to cultivate that relationship. And so, people are having these dreams anyway. It's normal. It's part of grieving. It's part of figuring out, how am I continuing to be connected to my person who died even after their body is no longer here? What this program does is provide people with a structured way to engage in that with some intention and specificity.
And love, Fern, because
Yes.
it's all love. The love,
Yes.
we've all heard love is eternal, love never dies, love is energy. Well, that's all true.
Right.
And so the program originally, the full name is really Awakening to Eternal Love, Comfort, and Connection. My experiences, Daryl's experiences, research, so much research on this topic, and stories from clients. It's the most healing work imaginable. It's really another path through grief, and not in another whole way. It's also a way to connect with your ancestors and be supported by loved ones on the other side in an ongoing way. So it's not just grief. It's unbelievable for grief, and it, without a doubt, based on Likert scales, decreases grief intensity for people, which, what a gift that is. But it's really about the ongoing connection to spirit is why we started it to begin with. We've created a curriculum for it, and So it's a 4-week program. I mean, you've seen most of the content. There's lots of PDFs, there's lots of practices, there's lots of different ways we combine, but it is very, very research based. So we drew from the world wisdom traditions, we drew from cultures and religions and history, because people have been doing this work since the beginning of civilization itself, I like to say. And so, throw art and art therapy into the mix, because art is just like a whole other portal and a way to channel. And so I think that is also, the art part is a big differentiator for the way Daryl and I share it, because it gives people access into that zone of creativity that opens a channel for spirit to come through, and, all kinds of other things happen, but very structured, very much a course, but also meant to have participants personalize it to their own way of being. And that is super important because of cultural considerations and religious considerations and, how we fly normally in our day. So that's a really important part of it. 4 weeks, we ask people to try the practices 3 or 4 times a week, 10 minutes minimum, or until you've had a meaningful experience. And, you've seen the material, so it's all kind of very, very laid out. And I think the beauty of it is that when you're open to these experiences, they can happen very quickly, whether it's feeling your loved one having an experience during the day, a waking dream, a synchronicity, or, dreams at night, all of the above.
So if they go through the 4 weeks and they don't have a meaningful interaction, they didn't fail. An overachiever in me is like, because you gave me the materials 2 weeks ago, and I'm like yelling at my grandmother. I'm like, you better come through. We have a final exam.
No. It's the beginning. Daryl, you can speak to that.
I'm so glad that you brought this up, Fern, because, the ultimate goal of this program and the whole reason why we do this is to help people deepen a spiritual connection to folks who are no longer here, right? Dreams are one way to do that, right? The other big part of the program, which opens those portals, is the art therapy, is the practice of creating a loving memory box. And for people who don't see themselves as creative, right? Like, how many times do you talk to people in your life and you talk about creativity and people say, oh, I could never do that. Right. Or I'm not musically inclined, or I can't draw a stick, right? But so what the art therapy practice does is gives people a structured, really easy way to tone down their ego, to turn off their thinking brain and get into a flow state, which is where messages and images come up from the subconscious and ask to be witnessed.
So it's a form of meditation, which a lot of people are also like, I can't meditate. But if you just...
Yes. In fact, my thesis for my master's degree was art as a contemplative practice. Yes, art making is absolutely a form of meditation. And we do, as part of the program, Daryl and I do provide meditations and guided meditations. And I think when you combine the meditation with the art making, you do, it's the double. You're supercharging everything you do when you combine it with meditation, in my mind.
Right. And it doesn't have to necessarily be art. So someone was knitting. That was one example.
Yeah. It's however, whatever way creativity resonates with you in a way that connects you to your person.
Can you explain the difference between a dream visit and a dream, and then also symbols, synchronicities, and a waking dream? Because they're all different.
All different. Daryl, which part of that do you want to take? Because he's so good at it too.
I think to take a step back from the difference between a synchronicity or a waking dream or a visitation is, kind of underneath all of that is intuition. Right? We are all intuitive beings. We can't help it because that's part of what it means to be human. And so we want to help people understand that everyone has a birthright to this, that everyone already knows how to do it. So for folks who are listening or watching, think about a time in your life when you've had deja vu, that feeling like you've been here before, or you're thinking about an old friend and a half hour later you get a text from them or a phone call, or you're sitting in a room and you know someone's behind you, but you have no idea when they walked in, right? Those are all of the types of sensitivities that all that we're doing is asking people to start recognizing what's already present in their lives. And so that then sort of can get categorized in terms of the different terms that you were talking about.
That's beautiful. And I'm always going to, because the program is very Jungian based, right? We give it a very Jungian structure that I shared with you that came from Nora Swan Foster, my former analyst, with the gateway attending passage and symbols, and we're all very Jungian here. There is a Jungian analyst, his name is Murray Stein, and he says that a synchronicity is when something happens in this world and in the spirit world at the same time. And that just like says it all for me.
Yes, I love
You know,
that.
it's just like you get that cold chill and it takes your breath away.
Yes.
And, you know, as Daryl said, we've all had those experiences. And so let's give them context. To speak to, you know, visitation dreams and dreams, there are things that research shows us very much distinguish them, and I'm happy to share those. But the number one thing is really the dreamer is the person who has that answer. And that goes with any dream work. You know, I'm not a fan of broad dream interpretation. I'm a fan of helping someone understand what the symbols and the people and the goings on in the dreams, the settings. There's so many things to dreams that are personal, but in general, visitation dreams are very different because of how they feel. We feel like we have been with our loved one. In the dream experience, we may be hugging them, we may be smelling them, we may be, you know, kissing. It's such a completely different sensory experience than a regular dream with a loved one, a grief dream that can also be very, very healing and comforting and symbolic in other ways and give us something else that we need to know. The other thing is typically in a visitation dream, our loved one will look healthy if they were ill at the end of their life. They may be dressed beautifully. They may communicate something to us really especially meaningful. And that might happen with words and it might happen telepathically. Like people say, you know, I knew they were saying, I'm sorry I had to leave you, or I'm always with you, or, you know, I'll share my visitation dream in a little while, but it's something is said that is so meaningful. And the other distinguishing factor from research is when you wake up, you know, something has occurred. You might still be crying. Your life is forever changed, Fern. And if you allow it to, it can really even transform the whole grief process.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
in addition to that, one thing that unifies all visitations is the feeling of being seen and witnessed by your loved one. That's really
Yes.
at the core of what we hear people say over and over. I felt like my son was here,
Yes.
was with me,
Right.
or my grandmother told me this thing that only she and I know that no one else knows, and it means, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
That there's some form of intimacy that's experienced.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's really what's at the core of visitations.
I've had this podcast since 2018, and I've always said, and you can tell me if this is wrong, maybe I've been misguiding people, but I think this is accurate. Dream could be your subconscious kind of working things out that you didn't really think fully through during the day. But a dream visit doesn't have that underwater dream feeling. It's tactile. It's real. It's as if you really are with that person. And it's never going to be upsetting or bring any of the earthly baggage to it. It's like you've been reunited with that person for real. And I have a cousin, it'll be 20 years in August, who passed very suddenly. And it was tragic and traumatic, and we're still all working through the trauma. And I remember my aunt saying that she had a dream about her and she was mad at her. Like my cousin was mad at my aunt. And I was like, that's your subconscious. She is not mad at you. When you have a dream visit, it will be wonderful. But that was a dream that she's working out something in her subconscious, something that's earthly, and not to worry that's just
I would,
anyway.
I would 100% agree with that. And that's part of the characteristic of what we will just call a grief dream. In Jungian psychology, we look at different people in our dreams as some aspect of ourselves. And so, it may be that she was actually angry about the death herself. And so she was projecting that onto your cousin in the dream, because the dream maker is always going to give you something to help you heal. And it's a very good point to make, is that when we dream of our loved ones and it's not a visitation, it's not always pleasant. It can be very unpleasant. And, Daryl, we've both had those experiences.
Yeah. One of the times that we did this program, I wanted to connect with my best friend dog, right, who died about 14 years ago or 12 years ago now. He and I were really close. We've had other people work with dead animals and, animals who have crossed over. So Teddy came to me in a number of dreams where he was leading me on a path or showing me things. And not everything that he showed me was really pleasant, right? Like, it was challenging, because life is challenging, right? Like, life isn't all rainbows and unicorns. But what was really beautiful is, as I was still starting this process at the time, through working with Elizabeth during a one-on-one session, she was able to help me unpack what those symbols were supposed to mean to me, right? So just like Elizabeth said earlier, we really try to stray away from broad interpretation of symbols, because everyone's love is unique. Everyone's relationship is unique, and we all have a unique symbolic language. So it was really helpful to be able to have a sort of coach and guide along the way to help me put these challenging experiences into a context of healing that I could, find that connection.
Right. I'm curious if you're willing to share what were some of the things he showed you.
It was just like, we were in situations that were uncomfortable and things that I didn't experience in real life, and that made me feel sort of like, why am I here? Why don't I have any shoes on? Why is it really windy? It wasn't like, negative or violent things were happening, but just things that caught me off guard that I wasn't really sure, that I was not expecting. Right. And then I wasn't. So.
Right. Yeah. I would be like, on the other side, it's not supposed to be windy. Make it nicer. Like, what's this meant to teach me then? Yes.
And I not to interrupt, but to just say, those negative dreams, and we call them nightmares, I promise, have the best dream medicine in them for us if we can unpack them. And I always recommend, having help and support doing that. It is really the dream maker or divine or whatever you are getting slammed on the head with this information, and the unconscious will amplify, a tiny flicker into an apocalypse to get you to pay attention. And so nightmares are brilliant for healing. They are brilliant.
Right. I appreciate that you said you're not into broader dream interpretation. I saw a meme recently that was like, their idea of torture is having to hear about someone's dreams. Like, I don't want to know about it. But that's different than what you're doing here. What I talk about. Yes. Very different.
And it's not to say that collective interpretations cannot be valuable, right? So we always look to the personal associations of the dreamers first. And then, we want another layer, like, what's the meaning of if I have no association, if I'm working even with my own dreams, I'm like, I have no association to, the number 5 or whatever it is that I can't think of, that I can't find the association. Then oftentimes I will look to the collective and see, or I will look to the archetypes, or I will look to myths and fairy tales, which are rich with collective pieces of psychology that we can work with when we're trying to understand our dreams. So when I talk about we don't look at broad interpretations, if you're on TikTok and someone says, oh, you dreamt your teeth are falling out, it means, you're going to die or whatever. Like I always say, run the other way.
Yes.
It might just be that you need your teeth cleaned, number
Right.
one. Or, it could be so many other things. So it's those broad interpretations that I just really, get me in a way that I just don't, I hope people don't listen to them.
Yes. Yes.
And that's really one of the reasons why, as part of this 4-week program, we have 3 Zoom sessions as part of the program. We have an initial session where we introduce people to the concepts and provide some education, and introduce people to the kind of structured program and rituals, and where we, have time for folks to work together, even though we're in separate places on loving memory boxes. We have a collective Zoom session at the end of the 4 weeks where people can share, ask questions, and most importantly, support one another as everyone is deepening these spiritual relationships. But in the middle, there's also a one-on-one support session with me or Elizabeth or both of us, in which we can, help unpack some of these symbols, answer questions, make sure people feel supported along the way, and just know that they're not flying solo.
The show is called Signs from the Other Side. So I get signs from all of my grandparents. And I had one dream visit when I was going through a spiritual awakening in my 20s. But signs are the big thing for me. But that's different than a synchronicity. So can you explain that?
Signs are just those, I define a sign. It's when you just know that it's your loved one communicating you in some way. A synchronicity is more one of those kind of magical moments that give you chills and breathtaking. And so I'll give you a great example of one from my own life. Okay. I was 19. I fell asleep driving. I broke both my legs. I didn't walk for a year. You know this story. So I was lying in the hospital a week later, and I was in terrible pain in my back, and I was having trouble breathing. And my mother, who was sitting by my side, who is an avid reader, was reading a book it was a nonfiction book about a woman who was having a pulmonary embolism. Okay. And I'm lying there in the hospital bed, and I'm in a horrible pain. My mother says she's having a pulmonary embolism. My daughter, and they're not paying attention. And she's yelling, my daughter needs oxygen. She's having a pulmonary, because she's sitting there in that moment reading it. And I was having a pulmonary embolism. My mother saved my life. That
What are the chances she would be reading about that and know
No.
I know that story because we talked about it on your episode.
Right.
And so often I hear stories that I already know, and I still get chills. And this is one of them.
It's just,
Of all of the books to be reading at that moment, and she was able to tell those doctors, this is what's happening. Yes.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Synchronicity.
So that's the difference. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
It's the spirit world and here at the same time. They're like coming together to, Albert Einstein has a fabulous quote. He said, coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. And I love that.
I love that.
Kind of the same thing. So, yeah.
And a waking dream is different in that could be like during a meditation or...
Yes. And that would be, and again, I love that you brought that up, Fern, because that goes back to how research-backed this program is, because Waking Dream conceptually came from a psychologist named Mary Watkins, and she has a beautiful book called Waking Dreams, and, invites us to go back to the place where, as Daryl said, we've all experienced waking dreams where we're kind of outside and something happens, or we're in the imaginal world, and we allow ourselves to kind of tap into that. We daydream, as children playing with dolls. It's all part of imagination, dreams, visions, meditation goes into the waking dream category. And it's something that we all experience. And in this program, we consider those experiences as wonderful and legitimate and success. Let's call it a success as having a dream or a visitation dream.
Yes.
It really is. Yeah.
Is this a waking dream? So my brother had COVID, and it was terrible. It was like, he was one of the first people in the country to have it. And I we were all terrified. It was terrible. And I was so scared. And I said to God, I'm not religious. I mean, I grew up Italian American, we're Catholic, but I was like, I will say the rosary every day for the rest of my life if you make him okay. And so I do it, and I have a prayer list. So if I hear about someone, so that I can, it's a form of meditation. If I can, it takes me 6 minutes at times. And if I say I'm praying for everyone who's on my list and giving them that good energy. I sometimes daydream while I'm saying those prayers. And I had a terrible betrayal in high school, my senior year of high school. And it created trust issues. It created a lot of issues. And I saw a TV show in recent years called Pull Dark, and it brought up some of those feelings. Even though I'm happily married to a man I trust, it's not happening now, but I still have that wound. And so as I've been saying my rosary for the past couple of years, I'm in another world where that happens. And it inspired my third book. It's finished now, but I would go there and I would basically be writing my book and reliving the betrayal and working it out as I was praying. Is that a waking
That's a waking dream?
Yeah.
Yes, that's an extended waking dream. Beautiful.
It's been 30 years in the making. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's so wonderful about what you shared, Fern, is that you have a practice of saying the rosary. And so it's a structured way of entering into a relationship with the subconscious and getting into a flow state. And so whether people are doing the rosary or doing practices like the ones that we suggest in our program, or any other spiritual or creative practice that you do again and again and again, so that as you're doing it, you are giving yourself access to different parts of your consciousness and brain, that is really the key of all of this.
So I've been lucky enough to get the materials. And one of the things that I love is you say, trust your intuition and trust the irrational. And what would you say to someone who's like, why should I trust the irrational?
Why not trust the irrational?
Yes.
And another part of my life, I've been studying an energy healing modality called source point therapy, which is a topic for another day. But one of the things that my teachers always say when people are new coming into the practice of like, well, how do I know this is real? How do I know this is there? And so one of the things that they often say is like, well, you send a text message, right?
Yeah.
Your friend gets it a second later. Where does that go? Like, obviously it goes through satellites and blah, 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 blah. But like, we don't, I have no idea how text messages actually work, but I trust that they're real.
Right. I love that. I love that. I always say like,
You
if
already trust the irrational in our lives.
Yes. I always say like in the 1800s, if you were explaining DNA to someone, they would be like, they wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't understand it. But now we know what it is, how it works. So yeah, it's the same thing. It would have sounded irrational then, but it's real. And it's proven. And yes, this is the same thing. This is energy. Trust that.
It's energy.
Yes.
It's all energy. And in terms of this program, it's all love.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you have another phrase. The symbol is and I keep using the wrong word.
The
and
passport.
Love is the passport. And love is the frequency.
And love is the frequency, right? Because it's like if so many times people go to a psychic medium and the psychic medium will say, can I hold your father's ring? And your father's ring holds the energy and the memories of your father so deeply. And that is why symbols are so important. But what the psychic medium does not have, this is why we don't need psychic mediums, is we have the love connection. And so when you combine the symbol becomes the passport that gets you on the frequency of love, because the minute you hold the symbol and you tune into a loving memory of your person, using the symbol or wearing the symbol, or, even if it's a pet, their bowl, whatever it is, you are immediately on the frequency of love. You are sending an invitation to your loved one on the other side. You are inviting their energy in to come towards you. And it's a beautiful thing. And so what I find really interesting about our program is that you can do the ritual and the meditation and the art therapy. You can do all of the things and have an incredible experience of some kind. You might get the experience from just doing one or two of the things, together. It's not, it's not like we say this is the program, do all of the things, because in combination we are supercharging everything. But I have seen people, just start with the symbol and have a visitation dream. So there's so many possibilities within the curriculum, and each part of the curriculum, the meditation, the ritual, the art therapy, you benefit from each one of those separately anyhow, right? So everyone can benefit from meditation. Everyone can benefit from art therapy. And, ritual is the way we let our unconscious know, and we let the other side know that we're in a very sacred space. And so we're in the space. And ritual is, of course, a very personal thing, however you decide to do it. So one of the number one things people say when someone passes away is they have guilt and regret. Daryl, you'd probably echo this. So it's like, I should have said this. I should have done that. Why didn't I X, Y, Z? And these dream visitations, he can heal that. Because they need to heal on the other side from that too. The healing is a two-way street. We need our loved ones. We're evolving here to grow and be better humans. And spirits supposedly are evolving on the other side to ascend or come back, or I don't know what the answer is, but we need each other. And so the point of that is that my best friend and I were completely estranged at the end of his life. And this was a 30-year relationship, my bestie in the whole entire world. And on the morning of his celebration of life at 4 a.m., I had a full-on visitation dream from him. And we were standing in line at motor vehicles. That was kind of the setup. And it had something to do with license, I'm sure. But he was hugging me and kissing me and burrowing his head into my neck and saying, Ellie, because that's what he called me, it's all about love. And you knew what I needed. You knew that I needed to come to New York. It's all about love. And because before he died, we were completely just disconnected. The love wasn't there. And I loved him so much. And we were estranged because I kept trying to help him because he wasn't doing well. And he, couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't accept the help then. But the dream was like, oh, you knew, you were right. It's love. That's what it was. And the guilt and regret that I had, was completely gone. And, Daryl and I had a client, who experienced something very similar with her best friend who had committed suicide, a drug overdose. And, her experience was very, very similar to mine. But in her dream visitation, she experienced her friend, her name was Jill, in a way where they actually spoke about what had happened, and they hugged and they kissed and they had this complete, repair that was completely life-changing for our client. I mean, it completely, changed her entire life, because this was her guilt was so bad that because she couldn't help her friend as she was, kind of declining into substance abuse. And, no matter what she did, she couldn't help it because you can't. Right. But it was completely healed in the dream world. And so this whole idea of letting go of guilt and regret is so profound. I mean, I'm full on body chills, even just sharing that part of it. It's really something.
Oh, I'm so happy for her.
Yes.
And from a grief standpoint, from a healing through grief standpoint, one thing that we see over and over and over in bereavement counseling and grief work is that, grief opens a rift in the story of who we are. It's universally true that grief makes us ask a really difficult question, which is, who am I now that my entire world has changed? Right? And that is a creative process. And part of the creative process of healing through grief is reconciling things that can't seem to be true, right? Our brains are pattern-seeking organisms. They keep us safe by looking at patterns. So two things that can't be true are, my friend is dead and I'm still here. How are those two things true? Another pair of opposites could be, I wish I had done more, and I know that I did everything that I could. Or I wish I hadn't said that thing that is sticking in my mind, and I have a deep love for this person, right? All of those things are true, but our brains and our culture tell us that only one of those things can be true at any one time. So just in the same way that healing through grief is a process of reconciling two things that can't seem to go together, our program helps to connect who we are now with the person on the other side, right? We're building connections, we're building spiritual
Right.
linkages, so that people can heal.
Yes.
Right.
In different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And it becomes part of the forward identity, because grief can throw us into a full-on identity crisis. And so as we are creative in figuring out who are we now without our person, when we kind of forge and cultivate this spiritual relationship, that now becomes part of the forward identity. And it's so healing. It's so much better than letting it go. I mean,
Right.
continuing the bond is so much better than deciding it's gone forever.
Right.
I feel like every time I cry, it's a weight lifted off of my shoulders, and I'm dedicating something so sacred and special to me as my dreams to connect with her. And it's just like, it's like the perfect marriage of how to get over my grief. Like, I think it, and being able to dream like I dream, which is really great, that it's really helped me a lot. I don't feel as panicky when I cry. That was like when I hyperventilate and just get really upset and feel guilt, like just overwhelming guilt about not helping her be clean. And we had gone through something where she wanted to stay with me and I didn't let her. So I held on to that for a long time and all these things. And now I just slowly feel like I'm just getting to the point where I'm like, she's gone, but she's not gone from me. Like I feel like if this is all true, she's still with me in a way that I can't explain, but I can explain. Like I just feel comforted by her, and every aspect of it has been wonderful and has definitely helped me.
I think I just want people to really understand that they can do this, and there's no special talent that people need. That all people really need is the intention that they want to heal through their grief and connect to their loved ones, and something will happen.
And I know I'm going to add one more thing, because one of our participants in the last group, wasn't trying to heal from her grief. She was trying to connect with her ancestral grandmothers. And so this was a whole other thing. So we were very curious to see what would happen. And she had incredible synchronicities and connections with her grandmothers that gave her context for her entire life and her writing, and understanding that she had been connected to this grandmother all the time, even though she didn't know her. She found things that she had written down 20 years ago, like fell out of a book, the address where her grandmother lived. So she had all of these crazy synchronicities. And on top of that, she had a grief dream of her father who died 2 years ago. So not a visitation, but she had a dream that helped her understand. She thought she was pretty, she thought, I'm okay, with this. But she realized through this program that she really had still some work to do. And the other interesting point to add was several participants were setting intention to dream about someone specific, and someone else came. We had that happen 3 times. Yes.
Right.
Another person from the other side came. And in one case, it was to help her. The mother came to help her reach her sister. And then she had a dream of her mother and sister together.
Wow.
So this is like a
Yeah.
whole new chapter in my book. It's like,
Yeah.
really? Like, whoa.
Yeah, that is one of the most exciting things about this work, is that, we're learning something new along the way. So these experiences that people are having, once they open themselves to them, once you open that door, there may be things on the other side that you weren't even expecting, right?
Yes.
So, that's one of the reasons why we're collecting these stories, so that we can contribute to this book of knowledge about how to foster connections.
Yes. Yes. So this is my journal. I printed out everything. And so one of the dreams that I haven't had a dream visit, but I had a dream where I woke up and was like, try the other grandmother first. So I'm going with my grandma Fern on my dad's side. So she died when I was 15. When I was 25, I was going through a spiritual awakening. I had been Roman Catholic before that, but then I was reading all of these books and my mind was opening and I had a dream of her. And I always say, like, I'm Italian. You think I would have like a big fat Italian grandma, but I didn't. She was really skinny and I felt her cold. She was always cold too. I felt her cold, bony back. And she said, I'll be seeing you. And I was like, that doesn't sound good. But I think she meant, we know what you're going through, this spiritual awakening, all of these ideas that you're learning about, and we're watching you and helping you and guiding you always. So I was like, if anyone's going to come through, and I haven't had a dream visit since, if anyone's going to come through, get signs all the time. But I was like, let me try her. So that's why I wanted her to come through. So I had this box. I have a bag of hers. She had this. She worked at a department store, and this is a bag that she had. And she wore gloves. Like, she was very ladylike. And
not for nothing, that's a pretty fabulous bag.
Fabulous bag. And then there's a little change purse in it, and still has a price tag that says $12. So this is very old, and it's hers, and she was fabulous. But tough, but funny, like really funny. So I feel like I can be very frank with her. Like, I was like, come through. So I have like something to talk about on the podcast. Like, and she loved the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So I put that in here. And we always watched Golden Girls. So I put that in there. So this is my box, and I'm going to keep it. I've been keeping it by my bedside. And then I've been journaling, and I know she's going to come through and we'll have another talk. So is there anything you can recommend to add to it?
I have recommendations. Yes. I always look at the site. Yes. The purse to me is also a container. Yes. I mean, do you ever wear the purse? Do you ever use it?
Sometimes I've worn it to weddings. Yeah.
Okay. So I would be very intentional about using the purse in your home, just walking around your house using the purse.
Oh, okay. Because sometimes I'm always carrying things like downstairs from my office to the kitchen, and I could put my phone in it and then bring it down.
Use your purse. Use the purse.
Yes. Okay.
Is one thing, and not just that. Watch the Golden Girls. Watch an episode of the Golden. Go back into the space of the things that you did together, and do it before bed. Also,
okay.
You carry because that's kind of telling the unconscious, okay, it's almost bedtime. This is our time, and whatever your intention is, that you're saying, make it very specific. I'm setting an intention for you to help me with, and pick one thing. Don't pick 5, because then the message could be confusing.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Or visit me and tell me what you want me to know. And
yes.
And Daryl, can you speak to saying your intention out loud? Because I love how you say it.
Yeah. In the spirit of, you were talking about frequencies and vibrations before. Our brains hear our words differently when they're spoken out loud. So we're using our whole body. When we're speaking, we feel the resonance in our chest. We feel our vocal cords speaking, and then our ears are also picking up that vibration, which is being sent out to the universe. So we always encourage folks to not only think their intentions and meditate on them, but to say them out loud frequently. So whatever your intention is, you saying it out loud, your brain hears what you're saying. So when we speak these things out loud, we're also telling our brain, hey, pay attention, so that when you start getting signs, you'll know what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And as you're falling asleep, that's like the best time to be saying your intention over and over and over again. We'll give you like more. We have tons of suggestions, because as you can tell, it's all very personal too. What your, photo might be good. Talking to her might be good. Asking her what episode of The Golden Girls should we watch, and just, listening,
Yes.
because you already know how to do that really well.
Yes.
But
I
just,
love this.
engaging, just keep the connection going as if she's still here, because she is.
Yes. Yes.
The number 12 was contained within one of the objects that you associate with your grandmother. So there was the price tag inside the change purse that said 12. So you might notice where in the world around you notice the numerals 1 and 2 together.
Yes.
See what comes up.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. I love that.
Is it the 12th day of the month, or something that happened when you were 12 years old? Or
Oh, she was born in 1912. I don't remember any of my other grandparents' birthday, but I just remember 1912. Yeah.
You might have just landed on it.
so there may be some other synchronicities and signs that are around that 12, because your grandmother gave that to you in the change purse for a reason. That's one of the signs that you're receiving.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
And then there's the collective, is the spiritual meaning of the number 12, which we don't know. But I think that that's such a good point, Daryl. Brilliant.
Yes. Thank you. Where can everyone find you both?
So we are in the process of putting together the program in a way where people can, go and sign up very easily. We're not there yet. So to make this very easy for everyone, I'm going to share my email for the program. And also the website is awakeningsdreamwork.com. Of course, there's my TikTok, which is Awakenings Dreamwork. And my direct email for the program, where you could reach Daryl and me, is awakeningsdreamwork@gmail.com. And it's Awakenings with an S. And just email me, and we're putting together a waiting list. We keep the programs fairly small, like under 20, because we really want everyone to have the most full and rich experience as they can. So,
Perfect.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Perfect. Thank you so, so much. This is amazing. And I'll put all of that in the show notes.
Okay, great. And so we have to chime out.
Yes.
So, Fern, thank you so, so much for having Daryl and myself here today. We are so grateful to share this work with you and your listeners. And again, everybody out there listening should know that connecting with your loved ones on the other side is your birthright. And as always, we send our heart to you and a big namaste.
Thank you so much for listening to Signs from the Other Side. You can find me, Fern Ronay, on all social media at Fern Ronay, Ronay. I love hearing from you, and I love hearing your stories of signs. And if you would like to hear more episodes of this show, please be sure to subscribe in Apple Podcasts. Thank you again, and sweet dreams.